Denzel Washington sat at the view table on a Wednesday morning that felt sharper than usual. The audience applauded politely, but not warmly. He greeted Whoopi, Sarah, Joy, and Sunny with a respectful nod, his posture straight but not stiff. The studio lights seemed brighter than they needed to be. Whoopi started, her voice neutral but watchful. She said, "Denzel, you've always been known for saying what you believe. We appreciate you being here again today." Denzel looked at her, calm as ever. He said, "Thanks, Whoopi. I'm here because conversations matter, even the uncomfortable ones." A few claps rippled through the audience, quickly swallowed by the silence that settled after. Sarah leaned in first, her tone careful. She said, "You gave an interview recently that went viral. You said that too many Americans have stopped thinking for themselves. Do you think that's fair?" Denzel nodded once. He said, "It's fair. We live in a country where people are fed what to think, what to feel, who to trust. That's not thinking. That's conditioning." Joy half smiled, her voice tinged with something sharper. She said, "But who's doing the conditioning, Denzel? The media? The government? Celebrities like you?" Denzel met her eyes without flinching. He said, "All of the above. If you have a microphone, you can use it to wake people up or put them to sleep." A few murmurs drifted through the crowd. Sunny Hostin crossed her arms on the table. Her tone was smooth but edged. She said, "So you're putting yourself above the noise. You think you're the exception?" Denzel turned to her, face calm, voice steady. He said, "No, I'm saying I'm aware of the noise. That's the only difference." Sunny pressed in, not blinking. She said, "But you've said some things that critics say feed the noise. You've talked about the breakdown of family, faith, crime. Some say you blame people for their struggles." Denzel's eyes stayed locked on her. He said, "Talking about the truth isn't blame. Pretending it doesn't exist is what keeps people stuck." Sunny's tone shifted, just a notch sharper. She said, "You make it sound so simple. Some people don't have your opportunities, your luck, your platform." Denzel leaned forward slightly. He said, "Then give them better opportunities. Don't lie to them about why they're struggling." Joy cut in, voice rising a little. She said, "So you think people are lying about injustice, about systemic problems?" Denzel didn't raise his voice. He said, "No. I think some people make a living talking about problems they don't want solved." A small gasp came from the back row. Whoopi's eyes narrowed just slightly, but she said nothing yet. Sunny spoke again, tone clipped. She said, "So you're saying I make a living talking about problems I don't want solved?" Denzel looked at her directly, unblinking. He said, "If the shoe fits, Sunny." The air in the room shifted, quiet but loaded. Sarah cleared her throat, her voice an attempt at calm. She said, "Let's not make this personal." Denzel turned to Sarah, his voice softer but colder. He said, "It's always personal when you're telling people the truth they don't want to hear." The audience let out a single, nervous laugh that died instantly. Sunny leaned back, her arms crossed tighter, her eyes locked on him. Whoopi's voice cut through, trying to keep control. She said, "We're going to come right back." But Denzel didn't look away. He said, "No need. I think I've said what I came to say." Sunny's jaw tightened as she leaned forward again. She said, "So that's it? You come here, call people out, then leave before you have to hear real pushback?" Denzel didn't blink. His voice stayed even. He said, "I've been listening to the same pushback my whole life, Sunny. It's not new. It's not real if it doesn't come with solutions." Joy's eyes narrowed. She said, "You think we don't offer solutions on this show? That's what you're saying." Denzel turned to her calmly. He said, "I think you offer sound bites. Headlines. Nothing that makes people look in the mirror for more than 30 seconds." A few people in the audience clapped once, just enough to make the silence feel heavier afterward. Whoopi spoke, her tone still flat, but her eyes sharper now. She said, "So you're better than us, Denzel? That's what this is." Denzel shook his head once. He said, "No, Whoopi. I'm saying I'm done pretending that hard truths are dangerous and soft lies are noble." Sunny's voice turned cold. She said, "You don't think you're dangerous, sitting here telling people systemic problems don't exist?" Denzel's voice didn't budge. He said, "I think pretending personal responsibility doesn't exist is more dangerous." Sarah shifted in her seat, trying to break the tension. She said, "But Denzel, don't you think it's both? Systems and choices? Can't you say that without insulting people?" Denzel looked at her gently. He said, "I do say that, Sarah. But folks hear what they want to hear when the truth makes them uncomfortable." The studio lights seemed too bright. The audience sat stuck between wanting to clap and not knowing if they should. Joy's tone rose another notch. She said, "So what do you want, huh? You want to lecture everybody while you sit in your mansion with your awards?" Denzel's eyes didn't flicker. He said, "I want people to stop being lied to. I want people to know they have power that can't be voted away or talked away on daytime TV." Sunny shook her head. She said, "You're oversimplifying things you don't live anymore." Denzel leaned forward slightly, his voice low but clear. He said, "I grew up with nothing, Sunny. Don't you ever say, 'I don't understand struggle.'" Joy slammed her palm on the table. She said, "Then stay here and debate. Stop walking away when it gets hard." Denzel's tone dropped so quiet that every word landed. He said, "It's not hard. It's just done." Sunny scoffed under her breath. She said, "Typical. You come here for the cameras and run." Denzel stood slowly. He adjusted his jacket, voice still soft. He said, "I didn't come here for the cameras. I came here because some people still listen, even when they don't clap." The audience shifted again, small claps, mixed with a hush that felt like no one knew who to root for. Whoopi said, "Denzel, sit down. We're not finished." Denzel looked at her one last time, then at Sunny, then at the audience. He said, "I am." Denzel stepped back from the table, his chair scraping softly against the floor. He didn't flinch at the sound. He looked at Sunny, her arms still crossed, her eyes narrowed like she was daring him to say one more thing. Sunny's voice came out clipped. She said, "Walk out then. Prove us right." Denzel didn't raise his voice. He said, "You don't need me to prove you right, Sunny. You already think you are." Joy leaned in, her tone biting. She said, "You're running. That's what this is." Denzel turned his head just enough to look at her without stepping forward. He said, "No, Joy. I'm refusing to play a game that was rigged the second I sat down." A hush moved through the audience, like they'd all stopped breathing for a second. Sarah's voice cracked softly. She said, "But Denzel, don't you want to leave people with hope? Not just the fight." Denzel's eyes softened when he looked at Sarah. He said, "Hope doesn't come from TV shows, Sarah. It comes from people doing the hard work when no one's clapping." Whoopi's hands pressed flat on the table. She said, "If you walk out now, you're saying you're above this conversation." Denzel leaned in just enough that his shadow fell across the table. His voice dropped even quieter. He said, "No, Whoopi. I'm saying this conversation ended the second telling the truth became disrespect." The audience clapped once, a hesitant ripple that faded fast. Sunny's tone turned cold, her eyes locked on his. She said, "Go on then. Be done." Denzel nodded once. He looked out at the audience, rows of faces half hidden under the lights. He said, "Think for yourselves. That's all I've ever asked." No one stopped him as he stepped away. No music played him out. The applause sign stayed dark. He passed behind the curtain without a glance back. At the table, Joy sat down too hard, her pen tapping uselessly against her notes. Sunny crossed her arms tighter. Sarah just stared at the empty chair. Whoopi's eyes stayed fixed on the spot where he'd stood, her hands flat, her shoulders tense. Somewhere backstage, Denzel didn't wait for handlers or a press line. He just left, steps echoing into the hallway, leaving behind a show that sounded quiet for the first time all morning. The clip went online before the studio lights cooled. Some called it a walkout. Some called it cowardice. Some called it exactly what people needed to hear. In living rooms across the country, a few people sat with the final line echoing. "Think for yourselves." And for once, nobody argued that part.